Just a few minutes ago, I finished putting together that, I guess you call it ad, or, you know, uh, alert post? What's another, something else to call it? Awareness? Whatever it is. Just saying, hey, I'm open and for hire and things like that. I finished it and I think it looks really good. I'm very proud of it. Yeah, it turned out very well. So, now it's a bit too late to go putting it up, so I'll have to wait. But in the meantime, I'm going to be preparing things and getting things ready. That's pretty much what I spent most of my day on. Is that really what I spent most of my day on? Yeah, I guess it is. And in the background, I've had uh, that group that I joined in. I've been having one of their streams in the background. They've been playing this particular game all day, and that's been nice. And poor Kilua, he, I can tell he's really missing his brother. Sometimes he'll just come sit near me, and then all of a sudden you'll hear like a little whine or a little whimper come out of him, even though he's just sitting there. And then I'll pull him in and try and hold him, and then he'll keep looking for me, and I'll hold him still. And I know I miss Gon too. I miss him a lot. There was another thing I don't want to forget about him that came to my mind today, which is that Gon, when you'd get near him, he would you could hold him and then lightly. Maybe I did bring it up, but I was too emotional at the time for me to remember it now. But when you'd get near him, sometimes if you'd squish him, give him a little bit of pressure, a little purr will go. a little purr. You could squeeze a little purr out of him, and it was really cute. It was always the sweetest thing. And just he'd watch you. He'd watch me walk back and forth. He would just stand on the center table and watch me walk back and forth. Yeah. But I think one of the people who lives around here started to notice that the other person isn't coming around anymore, and that I've just been by myself. And they asked me today if I still have that job and if I'm liking it. You know, a sort of worry in the face. And I was just like, oh boy. But I didn't say really any. All I said was like, yeah, it's going really well. I've been really enjoying it. It's been good. And that's that, you know. Not much else to say about it. But, yeah. So that was something. And I got the letters in today about SNAP, the SNAP resources from the Department of Human Services. And apparently those letters were there to warn me ahead of time. They didn't come in till now. But had I received them, I would have learned ahead of time that the other person had planned to try and put me onto a food stamps type service. And, yeah, but it was far too late for that. Looks like the case closed, and I was like, is this my thing? Does this have to do with me? And then I looked at the phone number, and every single phone number on every single letter there that was an update was the other person's phone number. So then I started putting two and two together, like, wait a minute. Oh, that's what the... And then on that date, that happened. Oh, this is that. That's what this is. Yeah. But, so, yeah, found that out, which was kind of funny. And I had pretty much a nightmare this morning. I had a nightmare that the other person took this place, flipped it upside down, set it on the edge of a cliff overhanging a river, and then it slid and dropped into the river. And then the other person tried to push the blame onto me and make it my fault that they did that. And then I realized it had, in the nightmare, I realized it had all my cats inside of it, including Gon. He was there too in my dream. So the other person took this place, flipped it upside down with all the cats inside of it, stuck it on the edge of a cliff overhanging a river, and then it fell into the river and got swept away. And I got freaked out, but thankfully at the end of the dream, it got swept up into the spot where it was before by the water's flooding. So it flooded, brought it back out of the water, back into the original spot, and all the cats were still in it and alive, and they were okay. And, but the place was falling apart after that. But then the dream ended, and no phone call today, which was nice. So that was done. And then I put Little Bear on in the background because that was a show that I would commonly put on for the kittens, including Gon, whenever I would go out for work or just leave for somewhere. Even when the other person was here, I counted it as them being alone, just leaving them with that person, so I would put it on, and it's sort of a comfort show. So yeah, I got Little Bear in the background, and it's given them more occupied time. They didn't need it for that before, but that was before Gon had passed away, so right now it's acting as a sort of comfort toy. You know, something familiar in the meantime. You know, there'll come a day when they won't need it anymore, but for today I can tell it's helping Killua to have that little bit of familiarity. So, you know, that's good. It's very good. Yeah. Usually I'll put it on before I go out still, but he seemed like he needed it today. With the little whimpers and the little meows he was giving off, it was too sad and just, oh. And then I just held him for a while, and he was happy, and I was glad to do it. So, you know, moving on from that. The next thing I thought of, I was thinking about, well, since I was putting Little Bear on in the background, I was reminded of a part I really find interesting about Little Bear is the progression of a lot of the characters, mainly Duck. Duck starts off as kind of like an odd mix. She's like kind of shy, but not like overly shy. She's just kind of a bit timid, but out of everyone, she's shown taking the most responsibility. She takes care of the ducklings, she leads them around, she watches over, like, various things. Like, she's simultaneously the most kid-like, but also the one with the most responsibilities, and shown doing the most out of everybody else. She's very, It's very interesting. And then as the show progresses, she gets more and more kind of like zany, or a little more just like, is that the right word? Zany? She gets more like outgoing and kind of, what's the right word for it? I'm gonna look up a synonym for zany. Synonym for zany. Bizarre, eccentric, quirky. No, I wouldn't say quite quirky, but like peculiar, eccentric. Yeah, that unconventional, off-center, odd. Yeah, I would say as Little Bear goes on, and you start hanging out more with Duck, and as she starts like I guess getting more comfortable, especially the voice actress playing Duck, just gets a lot more just eccentric as the show as it goes on, but she still has those like adult things that she does, taking care of the ducklings, having responsibilities. But it's like she gets to get more comfortable, and so you get to see a lot more of less normal, you know, let you just get to spend more time with her, so you get to see more of those like uh, different parts of her personality that are more like, oh, that's funny, or that's a little odd, or that's eccentric, offbeat. But she's one of my favorite characters in Little Bear. She's very good. She's one of the few characters who's also just very good to Little Bear as well. Like, genuinely a friend to him. It's funny to me that in the episode where Little Bear imagines how everyone would react if he became, like, a giant, because he's imagining what it would be like to grow up, but he takes it very literally. And so he grows up into, like, a giant. And it's funny to me how everybody else in his imagination gets scared of him or tries to run away. But Duck is the only one who leaves for a very practical reason, which is just that, like, he's too big to fit in the pond or play with her. So, it's funny that, to me, that of all the characters, that's how Little Bear imagines Duck like that. It just kind of shows how he views their relationship, that she's the only one who doesn't really treat it weird that he would become like a giant, and she just kind of looks at him and she's like, hello? Can I help you? And he's just like, it's me, Little Bear. And she's just like, oh, okay. She it's the most off-put she's ever been, but it's like, it's everyone else's normal off-put, but it takes some, I mean, it's not even really her, it's Little Bear's imagination of her, but it's funny to me that he imagines her in that scenario as just being like, alright. That's funny to me. And then, yeah, she leaves for just, not because she's scared of him, just for very practical, logistical reasons. Just like, it's not a good idea for you to be that size and be playing with me. You kind of like mess stuff up. And then she goes. That's funny to me. That is very funny to me. But anyway, the last thing I wanted to talk about is that reminded me something. It reminded me of a funny thing that the other person did a lot, which was that the other person, their taste in movies was like kind of mindless action films where people would go and just like shoot other people, and that was mainly it. Like, of any choice of movie, it would be just like a Jason Statham, a The Rock, a Jason Bourne, just like, but not even those ones. It would just kind of trail off into like the knockoff ones. So if the other person could pick a movie, it would just be a movie with a guy shooting people, kind of mindless action and shooting, or it would be kind of like a mindless sci-fi or a mindless like a conspiracy show where there's like, again, like it's that kind of show where it's like, I'm part of Special Force. You've been lied to. Special Force is evil. What? No way. We must go against Special Force. That means you're gonna have to shoot Special Force. And so, like, the show would be a person shooting baddies and then having to shoot friends who have now become baddies, with very surface level conspiracy going on for a bit of light drama. But the person would just keep picking shows like that, like I've always been different. You're different from the other operatives. You have this, and that, but you still shoot people and are cool and can beat up other people. Just kind of like wish fulfillment, sort of like a power fantasy type thing. And would constantly, like, always, that same type of show. It would be like surface level underground conspiracy, throw in a twist. Maybe there's a slight bit of mysticism involved, but ultimately it's like secret intelligence agency shooting people, bombs, explosions, that kind of thing. Just kind of over and over and over. If it wasn't that, it was a movie where like a guy would be shooting aliens, or alien invasion movie with more people, more guys shooting other stuff. You know, lots of shooting things, lots of just like guns, violence, maybe a secret conspiracy here or there. Various flavors of shooting. And that's not to downplay movies that have shooting, because there were many times where I would try. Eventually I gave up, but there were times where I was like, well, there's like these kinds of movies that are very well written, fulfilling, and they have the shooting stuff. They have the action, and the other person would be like, no. And I would wonder to myself, and then the other person would be like, well, I don't like the movies because of the violence. And then the person would try to come up with some very vague, higher calling reason for why they would watch these movies. And would come up with like, I'm just trying to see what's going on in the heavenly realm. This is real, right? That the angels and the demons are doing this all the time, and I'm just learning about them through watching these movies and what's going on in the invisible spiritual dimensions. And same with like the alien movie, like this is going on in the spiritual realms all around us with the angels and the demons, and these movie makers, they're just making stuff about that without knowing it. I'm just trying to see and learn about it, what's going on, and then it would just be some kind of like, again, just kind of Jason Statham generic mindless shooting action film where guys just shoot each other for a while, and then slight conspiracy element, and then it would end. And it would be like female protagonist, male protagonist, Salt, John Wick, Jason Statham, Jason Bourne, Tracker. What else? Let me think. There were a couple other ones. The Matrix at least once or twice, including Resurrections. Constantine. Which Constantine I actually think is good, but I don't think the person really liked it for that reason. For the good reasons. I do think that they really just liked it because it was more shoot, let's see what else, like the just like Star Trek Picard, the first 2 seasons. Let's see what else was there. There were so many. That one movie with the Tomorrow War. It's that one with Chris Pratt where he shoots aliens, and she would, or the other person would pick all kinds of movies like that. Expendables, just like as many. There are so many more I could list that are more on Jack Ryan. Just like you go through a whole bunch, just like shoot films, gun films, military movies with more shooting, but not particular. The ones that lean just kind of into that generic wish fulfillment, like cool guy shooting, cool lady shooting thing.
Good night, son. Sleep tight. If you see the moon, tell him to hurry up. I'm waiting to say goodnight to Father Bear.
And the other person, like, I remember we tried to watch Hunter x Hunter once, but the other person would only really comment it if they could find a way to make the show about themselves.
I can't go to bed yet, Mom.
That was yeah. Couldn't discuss really anything with the other person about anything
Every night we look
because they would always find a way to hijack whatever the topic or the conversation was.
Good night to Father Bear too.
Make it about whatever they wanted to make it about, never giving the other person the chance to say really anything, and then would purposely just bombard you with endless amounts of just talking and talking and talking and get angry. Very angry if you tried to, like, do anything to try and get the conversation back to what you were talking about, because the other person wouldn't even address it, or would, like, pretend to address it and then just completely jump into a rant or a tirade about something completely different.
I see a star.
The first star.
Can we make a wish?
Certainly. Starlight.
But, yeah. I'm just thinking about that now. The other person hijacking lots of conversations and trying to make it about themselves or something that they wanted to talk about.
There are so many things.
Every single time, every single moment, unprovoked, with no, like, yeah.
Starlight, star bright. The first star I wish tonight.
uh,
I wish I might have the wish I wish tonight.
but, yeah. And the other person had a very specific thing where they
That's one.
refused to watch any
I can't
film at a certain level of writing. And I don't mean to make it sound pompous, but I mean genuinely, the other person went out of their way to just find media to consume without ever having to feel anything, just so they could feel like they had an opinion or a goal or a group or thoughts about something. Half the time would just look at thumbnails, guess what the thing was about, and then regurgitate it as if it was a fact. But they don't even know what was being said. They would just, like, say things as if it was true. but they would go out of their way if the other person was watching something that made them, like, feel anything,
Do you think Father Bear can see the first star?
then they would immediately become disgusted by it or try and find a way to force you to turn it off or try and manipulate you into not liking it so that you would turn it off.
Wrong with that?
And what about you, little bear?
And then, like, or would come up with excuses like you're inviting demons into the house or you're opening a portal or something like that. But then when it was a movie that they wanted to watch or they liked, it didn't matter what it was. It could have been about possession, aliens, whatever it was, as long as it had plenty of shooting, violence, or anything like that. So, like, and I remember this with a particular movie we tried to watch once. That I tried to show it because I thought the person would like it, and then the other person, like, dragged me into another room later on and just, like, screamed and yelled and ranted, and then years later went back to watch the very same film, and I had, like, a stressed out panic the moment they wanted to put it on, just of their own volition, and then the person reacted as if it was the first time they'd ever seen it, and I was like, what? And I just stayed quiet, and I was just like,
What's that?
the person's enjoying it for the element of the shooting and the violence and the guns and stuff.
This time we can't tell each other.
So,
Or else
liked it the second time, completely forgetting the grief that I was put through the first time.
Starlight.
The person ended up liking the movie, but again, for the action and the violence and the
I made a good wish, Mother Bear.
So did our little bear.
it was just irritating. Yeah, that was irritating to sit through.
See all these stars?
I'm sure he can. And now it's really time for bed, little bear.
But what about the moon?
I guess the moon is asleep.
But thinking to myself, yeah, It's irritating to me how much I forgot about the different topics that, like, I remember what the topics were that the person would drag everything into, or try to, hijack a conversation into, or make things about, but my memory is faded on how, like, each step that they would go through to the exact. I just remember the feeling of them doing it and them doing it, and I remember more recent examples, but I'm trying to remember how the person would go about doing it when we would, like, try to watch One Piece, or try to watch Hunter x Hunter, and then the person would be like, "Well, I guess you don't want me to talk about anything, do you? You just don't want me to get involved. You just want me to sit here and keep my mouth shut and shut up, don't you?" Again, try and guilt me into wanting to try and guilt me into, trying to have a conversation, or trying to at least, like, ask that they stick with my point for even a second, or acknowledge what I said, or not drag it in a ask it, that it not be dragged into a weird direction that would spend the next 2 hours not make any sense, and then, like, half the day would go by and we've barely progressed, and the person would constantly do that, just like every 2 minutes bring up something, turn it into an hour-long rant, and, like, we've barely done just sitting there miserable, and the person would be like, "Well, I guess you just don't want me to talk, do you? You don't want me to say anything. You hate it when I speak." And I'd be I can't even vent in my own home, stuff like that. Meanwhile, the person, like, went through 20 different topics, threw in lots of personal insults and attacks, and derogatory statements along the way. It was just like a whole thing, just to try and watch one episode of a show. Miserable experience. I just stopped trying to watch things with that person. I just stopped, like, years ago. I just stopped trying to. Completely pointless, completely worthless thing to try and do. And you know what? Life became a lot better afterwards. A lot better. But, yeah. So I'm just gonna keep going. Keep watching this person streaming this game that they really like. And, continue on and just keep going. Try and find a way to make more money. Potentially make money off of the things that I enjoy doing. Find someone to work with. Get this ad done. Find a way to promote myself and get people to see me. And, here I go. Sorry for the mostly negative one today. But, I'm hoping. Here's hoping that something happens. So, that's it.